Bitcoin, the new nuclear shield in global economics. You heard that right. Cryptocurrency is diffusing economic warfare as we speak. For decades, economic sanctions have been the West's weapon of choice. Think of it like a nuclear economic weapon. Entire nations have been brought down to their knees without a single shot fired. But what if I told you this weapon is losing its edge? Enter Bitcoin, an unexpected shield in this new era of economic warfare. From superpowers to sanctioned states, countries are turning to cryptocurrency not just as a financial tool, but as a defense against economic aggression. This is not just about money, it's about power, it's about sovereignty, it's about the future of global politics. And whether you own Bitcoin or not, this shift is going to impact your life. Welcome to the age of crypto deterrence, where digital assets are reshaping the world order. Let's go back in time to the Cold War, a tense standoff between the US and the Soviet Union. From the late 40s to the early 90s, no battles, just a lot of spying, propaganda, and a massive arms race with enough nukes to end the world. No hyperbole. The US spent a whopping $5.5 trillion just to keep up. Now, let's fast forward today. The battlefield has shifted and financial sanctions are now the weapon of choice. Just look at the 2022 sanctions on Russia, freezing over $350 billion in foreign reserves. And Iran, whose economy has been crippled by the US sanctions, lost over $100 billion in revenue from oil from 2012 to 2020. But in the landscape of conflict, control is starting to evolve. Here's a different kind of weapon that's being forged, not in military labs, but in lines of code. Large unexplained Bitcoin movements are catching the eyes of financial analysts. Governments are suddenly very interested in crypto seizures. So what's going on here? Here's the bombshell. As of July 2024, governments hold 2.6% of all Bitcoin available. That's 471,380 BTC, worth a mind-blowing 30.3 billion. But here's the kicker. It's a two-horse race at the top, another potential Cold War centering around Bitcoin. The United States owns 213,297 BTC, nearly 13.7 billion. China, despite its crypto crackdown, owns 190,000 BTC, which is about 12.2 billion. But why? Why are these superpowers hoarding Bitcoin? Most of these hoardings come from criminal seizures. The US from shutting down Silk Road, and China from the Plus token Ponzi scheme. And the question is why? Because there's an interesting theory that's been going around that they recognize Bitcoin's potential as a strategic reserve and a hedge against economic vulnerabilities. Former President Donald Trump at the recent Bitcoin 2024 convention hinted at creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve for the US if he's reelected. He suggested that Bitcoin could be integrated into the US Exchange Stabilization Fund to support the dollar and stabilize the economy during crises. On the other side of the globe, analysts speculate that China might be preparing to re-enter the crypto market, using Bitcoin as a strategic asset. This theory gains traction as China looks for ways to hedge against a weakening dollar to diversify its reserves. But the Bitcoin arms race isn't just limited to these superpowers. Let's take a global tour of how different nations are wielding this new economic shield. In 2021, El Salvador made history by adopting Bitcoin as legal tender. President Nayib's bold move was aimed at reducing its reliance on the US dollar, attracting foreign investment. Despite initial skepticism at first, this country has seen a surge in tourism and is building a Bitcoin city, a tax-free haven powered by volcanic energy. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, traditional banking systems were disrupted. Enter in crypto. Ukraine received over 100 million in crypto donations, allowing for quick and efficient distribution of aid. This demonstrated Bitcoin's potential as a lifeline during geopolitical turmoil. And in Turkey, where currency devaluation has been a persistent issue, citizens and businesses are increasingly turning to Bitcoin. The lira lost nearly 44% of its value against the dollar in 2021, crypto adoption surged. The grassroots movement demonstrated how Bitcoin can serve as a shield, not just for nations, but for individuals against economic instability, which is a driving reason for Turkey's high crypto adoption in 2024, making it one of the top 2 countries where Bitcoin is being adopted. As more countries embrace cryptocurrency, the global financial landscape is transforming. But what does this mean for the future of economic conflict? Picture a world where economic sanctions are harder to enforce and countries trade freely using decentralized networks beyond any single entity's control. This isn't science fiction, it's a potential reality that's unfolding before us. The SWIFT international payment system, a key tool for economic sanctions, faces its first real challenge. Nations are exploring blockchains-based alternatives that could render them immune to global financial exclusion, fundamentally altering the landscape of economic warfare. Traditional economic powers are finding themselves and their financial influence waning as smaller nations leverage crypto to assert more economic sovereignty. These nations are turning to Bitcoin not just as a financial tool, but as a lifeline to bypass crippling economic barriers. Let's take Iran, for example. Despite being under some of the strictest sanctions in the world, the country has found a way to leverage Bitcoin to its advantage. In 2023, US lawmakers raised alarms about Iran's Bitcoin mining operations, estimating that they could generate up to $1 billion in revenue annually. But this doesn't cover all their expenses, but it's a start. Iran's use of Bitcoin shows how crypto can provide new revenue streams even under heavy economic pressure. And it shows that money could scale into this to prevent and use this as risk mitigation in the future. And more recently, Russia has just legalized the use of cryptocurrencies for international trade, which was passed directly to counter, you guessed it, sanctions. The implications are massive. Russia's imports fell by 8% in Q2 of 2024 due to payment delays. Now, with crypto in play, they're looking to reverse that trend. That move could potentially reshape global trade dynamics, offering a blueprint for other sanctioned nations. This isn't just about adoption, this is about survival in the face of Western sanctions or the potential face of sanctions. The world is watching closely now, as nations that once raced to build nuclear arsenals are now rushing to harness the power of Bitcoin and blockchain, using it as a shield against economic aggression and as a tool for geopolitical influence. But what does this mean for you? Nations are starting to see Bitcoin as a strategic tool and a hedge against the vulnerabilities of traditional currencies and how they can be weaponized against countries. As governments and large entities recognize the power of Bitcoin, it could lead to significant changes in its value, presenting potential opportunities in the future. But what are those potentials? Well, the predictions are wild. Kathy Wood, CEO of ARK Invest, predicts that Bitcoin could reach 3.8 million by 2030. One Bitcoin. Michael Saylor, CEO of MicroStrategy, predicts that a single Bitcoin could be worth 13 million by 2045. And that's his base case. We'll have to wait to see if these predictions are crazy or are they a glimpse of the future. But how did Bitcoin go from being underground to a powerful economic tool? Watch our next video, Bitcoin's Untold History from 2008's crisis to today's digital gold rush, to find out.